Hello, welcome back. This is Jeff Byers, and this is NE265, and we need to bring our Malcolm rig into Maya. So let's go ahead and do that. Go up to File. Let's go to Reference Editor. Create reference. So File, Create Reference in the Reference Editor. And we're going to go to Malcolm _v200.ma. Let's go ahead and click on Reference. This may take a while, so I'll go ahead and pause. Okay, you can see that Malcolm V200 RN Malcolm V200 MA is now showing up. Let's go ahead and close the reference. And there's our Malcolm in all his glory. Yay! Okay, so now we have all of these controllers, and we could move each controller, but why would we do that if we have a picker that we've been working so hard to get in? So we're going to use the picker. So let's go ahead and double click on the picker, and there's our picker. So now we need to go to File, Open. And so since we have everything in the Scenes folder, like I asked you guys to do, we're going to go ahead and click on the first one, hold the Shift key and click on the last one and click on Open. And this automatically should show up all his controllers, and the picker looks fantastic. So we got the face, and we can move the face around. Let's do the face first. We've got the body and then the outfits. That's what I'm just moving this around. And if you have a dual screen like I do, you can place this on the other screen if you want to, if you have dual screen. If not, I'm going to keep it here because then you'll be able to see what I'm doing. But it's a great picker, and I can see why if I pull it out, you can see more. Okay. So this is the face picker, and you can pick all of the controllers, even the hidden controllers you can't really see, and that's why we have a picker like this, because it can actually click on and choose stuff we can't see. For instance, some of these are going to be hidden by the hair, by the clothing. So having a picker is going to be really nice, and some of them, and you're going to have to experiment, especially with the facial controls. You can see how many facial controls there are to finally get the result that you want. And there's some other software we're going to actually download and start using too. When we're talking about advanced character animation, a lot of this has to do with working with very complex rigs like the Malcolm rig. I'm going to go ahead and pull this back again. Now, I can't go through everything. It would take too long. But anything you can see here for the Malcolm face, these are all the different types of hairstyles, I should say. Different hairstyles that go with this rig. So the reason why they put it with the face is because obviously it's going to be part of the head. And then what they do is you can actually, whatever, depending on the hairstyle that you have, find that, and you can actually key the hair. So they have key all here. That means it'll key all the hair, so you can actually create animation with the hair. Again, this will be after you do all the facial animations and stuff like that, so I'm not going to really get into this part of it, but you eventually will when we get farther and deeper into our modules. So it's really exciting. I'm going to pull this back again. We don't really need to see that. I can zoom in just by using my middle mouse button to zoom in, and just move this around holding the Alt key and the middle mouse button key, so you can get real close to it. Again, if you have a dual monitor, this is going to be really nice for you. Alright, we're not doing facial animation this week, so I'm not going to go too deep into the character. We're going to be more interested in the body, and let's talk more about that. All right, so you're going to want to keyframe. We got most and we got basic. Body really doesn't work. I mean, keyframing the entire body, it doesn't seem to really work that well. They may have fixed this, I don't know, but usually basic is what we're going to be using for posing and stuff. So when you pose the character, when you get it in, when you get everything working, and normally we will use IK. This week we're going to use IK, and then FK for the arms. So basic will be fine when you keyframe that. All right, just to give you a quick rundown on how to do your keyframes and how to work with Maya and get 8 of these without doing each scene differently. Okay, before we start actually posing the character and setting keys, we're going to have to go and set up the preferences. So I'm going to double click on the picker, and we are going to go to the preferences, and under settings animation we're going to click on evaluation mode to be DG, and we want auto key on, and make sure you click on save. Alright, so now we're ready to go ahead and keyframe our poses. Okay, after setting the preferences, now we need to keyframe all the joints we think we're going to be needing to keyframe. So I'm going to click on most, and I'm going to, at frame 1, I'm just going to hit the S key, and that'll keyframe everything, whether I moved it or not, which I didn't. So just hit the S key, and that will set a red bar on the first frame. Okay, and then I'm going to click off. All right, so and then we're going to continue on with posing, doing our first pose at frame 2. What I want to do, a couple things here. I don't want to have my joints showing, right? So I'm going to do just a quick pose. Nothing, very simple, so I don't waste your time, because you're going to need to spend a lot more time moving around your character, but I'm going to show you parts of the character you got to be very careful with. And you don't have to worry about clothing right now. Just go ahead and pose this character. This is just, basic practice. When you get better at understanding how the rig works, then we can worry about clothing, okay? Some of you will dive in with the clothing and the hairstyles right away. That's fine if you want to do that, but again, we have a very short week, so you need to really work on just getting your poses done, okay? So with that said, let's keep going. So let's go to the next frame. So I'm going to go to the next frame. I'm going to pull this up a little bit. And the next frame, we got our playhead right here. So the next frame, I'm just going to move, just click on it, and it's going to go to frame 2. Now this is when you're going to start posing your character, okay? And you can, again, use the picker, right, to rotate. So I'm going to go ahead and rotate. And that's his arm there. You can see how I rotate his arm, right? All right, so when I move around, if I hit the F key, you can kind of focus on that arm. And you can kind of see how the rig is working, right? This is forward kinematics, so the joint system will go down the arm. So if I work on the shoulders, you can see the FK up there. That if I work on the shoulders, you can see how it all works. You're just going to have to mess around with the character and just kind of play around with it until you get comfortable moving it around. And the same thing with the legs. So if I click on IK, that is going to move the leg up. as you can see. And then each part of this, you have to look over to the right on the channel editor, and you're going to see you got foot roll, right? So if I highlight that and I move my middle mouse button back and forth, you can see how the foot roll works. I'm holding down my middle mouse button and I'm moving the mouse back and forth to get it to work. You can also type, you can type in numeric values in there, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go back to 0 again. So you get the idea. And then you got the toe raise. You can just kind of mess with that. Again, this is very subtle stuff, right? And you got the heel press. And some of these work together, so if you have the foot in a certain way, the heel press might work a little bit better, but I don't see any difference there. Heel squash, that gives you a squashed feeling if you were doing a walk cycle and he puts his heel down on the ground, you can give it a squash when it hits the ground so it compresses, that kind of thing. Okay, and then a toe squash, the same thing. We got a squash on the toes. Again, that will we call splay in the feet when you put your foot down. And then we've got, and you can see that destroys the hyperextend, that destroys the knee, but especially like that. So there's things you can't use. We have a knee roll, which is kind of nice. That's kind of nice. Yep, knee roll. You can use that, definitely. All right. And just kind of go through them until you'll feel comfortable. Oh, that's one I would stay away from. That's the stretchy bones. And the stretchy bones, and then we got tilt. Yeah, that's kind of nice. You might want to, you'll be using that one. So there's some in here you just won't use, like you probably won't use the heel press or the squash, the toe squash and the heel squash. You probably won't use the hyperextend. The knee roll you're going to use. You're not going to use the stretchy bones, which is the low length and the up length, and then the tilt you probably use. Okay, so that's the leg and the foot. Again, IK, the leg is best used for this, and you can rotate the ankle through the leg controller, the IK controller, so that works fine. So you can be doing that, okay? And then you can mess with any of these attributes that come with the foot roll, or the reverse foot setup, okay? And I can move the leg out, and there's lots of really cool things you can do. Now, be careful with breaking stuff, right? So what do I mean by that? So there is so much you can do with this. Think about your own forearm. So let's say if we put this arm, it's like this. There's only so much you can twist this before it breaks, and it's breaking right there. And this is a break, and so what are you trying to do? Are you trying to move the hand so it's flat? Well, what you want to do is you're going to want to pull this back a little bit and just go to where it looks comfortable. Go as far as you can before it breaks, and there's not much point in going much farther than that. So what do you do now? Well, you click on the wrist and you roll the wrist the rest of the way, you see. So this will keep you from doing crazy stuff that the rig cannot do. If you break the rig, I'll be taking points off. So you don't really need to do that. So you can probably pull that back a little bit and then rotate the wrist. And that makes more sense than to try to rotate the elbow, which makes no sense. Now, because like our arm, this is rigged to move the forearm half as much as the hand or the wrist. That means that it's triggering that forearm bone to rotate half as fast. That means it's going to act more like a realistic arm. Okay? Now, with the fingers, you're going to want to never have it in the slap face. So this is basically the worst way to have your hand. Just rest your hand on your desk and just let it go limp and look at what it looks like. That's what a normal hand looks like. And then put your hand out flat. That's what a hand looks like when it's flexed. So you don't want a hand that's flat and flexed out on your character. It looks like a robot, right? So what you do is when you relax your hands, your fingers are not together. So the first thing I do is I splay them out just a little bit. Same with the thumb. This is just not natural. So the position of the fingers are never natural when you start with the character. So I should be using this, right? Makes sense. Okay, so let me splay those out just a little bit more. There we go. And you can see that's much better. Okay. Now, the only thing I don't like about Malcolm, I know it's a stylistic character, but his hands are ginormous. I mean, they're as big as his head. I mean, if you put his hand up to his face, it covers his entire face. If I put my hand up to my face, it's not near as big. Okay? So, just remember that when you're trying to do animations, his hands might get in the way a little bit. Well, what I want to do is I want to show you something which is kind of nice. When you do a hand curl, now a lot of times these guys come with these hand type of situations where you can select a hand and it will give you some attributes for that hand, and I really don't see that here. I don't think he has anything like that. Let me see if they've got any kind of, no, I don't see anything there. So what you're going to do is you're going to select, if you want to kind of curl the hands up a little bit for a more natural look, you're going to want to select the end one or the base first and hold the shift key down and go right through these. You can see I'm selecting them in the picker. And what I want to do now is I want to curl them all together. You can see how they curl together. You can create a fist, of course. It doesn't really work that well, but it does a little bit, right? Okay. Or you can do one by one. So what I can do here is I can click on that one, hit the Q key. Sometimes that manipulator gets in the way. I'm going to hold the shift key down, and I'm going to hit the rotate, and I can do these one by one. And I tend to do that because sometimes they don't work as well as they should. Okay, and then I can just kind of curl those one by one to get what I want, you know. And you can see that it makes a difference. Now, it's not quite what I want. It doesn't quite curl the way I want it to give me more of a realistic. And I'm looking at my hand on my desk, right, to kind of get, you know, just the relaxed version of my hand. I know these are subtle things, but these subtle things, that's what makes you a better animator right out of the box. Because you're recognizing the small details. Yes, they're time consuming, but you know, you need to have them. All right, so I just continue. So I'm just showing you this really quick because it's really important. I know it sounds crazy, but it's the hands are very important. They're almost as important as your facial expressions because your hands can express things that our body can't. So that is something we need to really focus on too as well. All right, so let's just bring that around a little bit. All right, so much nicer to look at. Again, you just got a relaxed arm, relaxed hand, or whatever. Now, if you're posing and you want your hands to be doing something, of course, they're not going to be relaxed, right? They're not going to be relaxed. But if they're just hanging down at his body, you know, and they're not really doing much, so it's one of those things that you just kind of, it depends on your pose, right? It just depends on your pose. And a lot of times the arm is back, like when we are moving our arms. Okay, let me go back to my IK or my FK, yeah. It's your shoulders are back a little bit and then your arms fall forward. And it really depends on how you have your weight distributed, you know. And there we go. That's much nicer. Yep. All right. And then we can relax that elbow even more if we wanted to. There we go. And just make sure you don't ever go outside of the body. So we'll pull that back a little bit. There we go. All right. Again, you can see his hands are just ginormous. All right, so we're going to go and probably turn off some stuff here. Let me go to, I want to go to show, and I want to go to isolate, select, viewport. I don't want to show anything, right? Show none. And then I'm going to go to show viewport. I'm going to turn on the polygons, of course, so we can see him. And I'm going to turn on the NURBS curve. Of course, we need to see those. So that's all I really want to see. I don't want to see any joints. Once in a while, I will find myself self-selecting, because sometimes that's even faster. Like when I'm doing lip syncing, sometimes I'll just go in there and just select his lip, right? And it's just easier to move it where I want it, because I know what triggers, that lip, so it's one of those things. You can do that if you want to. I do it once in a while, but it's really nice. There are things around the eyes that are hard to grab, and around the nose that are hard to grab by just doing that, but you get the idea. You can do one or the other. Okay, all right, so we're not worried about the face or anything. So what I need to do now, just say, this is not a great pose, but let's just say that we got it all posed, right? And you're happy with the pose. So, okay, we've got our first pose, and in our third pose, what we don't want to do, and I'm going to stress this, is click on most and reset your character to the default pose. I would not do that. Instead, what I would like you to do, because if you do that, you might run into ghosting effects, which means that it will still see your pose here, pose 2, and blend the two together. And I've seen that happen, so I don't go back to the default pose. So don't do that. What I would suggest you do is select the objects that you have keyframed, like the foot. So we can keyframe that back to 0. So I'm just going into the channel editor and hitting 0 and hit enter. And that will help bring that leg back again. And then with the arm and hand, we can go ahead and do the same thing with this. So this will set it back out again. And I'm doing both of those arms, it looks like. Get that one. So you can see ghosting in there because I had reset the body. And let's go ahead and do the FK up here. And I got the other FK in there. And I'll get that set back up again too. You can see that ghosting has caused some issues if I'm not careful. Here we go, finally got it. Okay, so that's what I can do if I want to go back to the, the default pose, because what's happening is when I select all of those and click on the most and keyframe, it like tries to ghost those keyframes and it leaves all this other stuff out there that's ghosting that, and that's kind of a weird thing. So so be mindful of that. I'm not sure why it's doing that. It's really bizarre that when I'm keyframing, that it's pulling those over there. But I think it's because I click on most or basic or body, you know, the whole body one, or all, which doesn't work, syntax error, but most. So what I would probably recommend if you run into that issue is to start over, because we haven't done much here. Start over and go in there and select the just keyframe these by yourself without going into clicking on basic and keyframing it all. And I think that'll best serve us. And what we can do then is create our own shelf of just the basic controllers that we use when we animate Malcolm, so we don't have any issues with that anymore. So we'll look at that as we move along. But I think it's a glitch in the actual GPU. So anyway, continue. Set just kind of, you know, posing your character, and I guess I didn't do the foot, so let me do that real quick. There we go. So that's not out in space. There we go. So now we got it fixed. Okay. So now we can move on to our third, and then you would just want to select all the ones you think you've selected here. That's not FK, but IK. And just select those, and then you can hit the S key. Okay, but when you pose, it'll automatically key those anyway, so you really don't need to click on most or basic or body or anything like that, or do the reset. So when you're posing, just pose and then hit the S key, go to the next one, pose and hit the S key, go to the next one, pose and set the S key. Instead of trying to click on most and keyframe, that causes some issues with the posing or the Maya. So keep that in mind, okay? So if you have any issues or problems, or if you have any ghosting like that, you're going to have to go back probably and do not use these most, basic, body, or reset. Okay? All right, so this is new in 2026. I haven't had a chance to even use 2026 yet. So I'm finding these things out right now, so I'm passing that on to you. All right. Have a great day. And about rendering, I'm going to have a rendering video for tomorrow on Thursday, so look for that. And I will see you later. Just get everything posed and fill up. So this is the default, and then pose 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So you'll have 9 keyframes for 8 poses, because we won't count the frame 1 for default. Okay, good luck, have fun, and let me know what's going on, and keep in contact with me at jbyers3@jcc.edu, and I'll get right back to you. All right, have a great day.